Well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like there's even worse news regarding Rachel Zegler's brand new The Hunger Games movie that has come out recently in theaters. And you know what? The media storm around this movie is a little bit quiet, to be honest with you. There's a lot more media storm around the Marvels, and that's because people obviously care about shitting on the Marvels more than they do about the Hunger Games. But ultimately, there is still a bit of a media storm regarding Rachel Zegler movie. Now, I think that's partially because she asked for it. She really does. She puts herself out there and she says so many different things that get people riled up that, of course, once her movie comes out, she's going to be a target. Maybe not a primary target, but she's going to be a target nonetheless. But apparently, her movie is performing even worse, ladies and gentlemen, than the Marvels. Now, that's saying a lot, given the fact that the Marvels is getting absolutely destroyed right now in the box office. You guys saw my videos prior where I was talking about the box office numbers for the Marvels and its overall performance compared to the previous versions of the MCU. It is pretty damn telling. So let's get into this article, guys, from Bounding Into Comics. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push this out into the YouTube algorithm. It says Rachel Zegler's The Hunger Games performs worse than Brie Larson's The Marvels at Thursday night preview. Rachel Zegler's The Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes had a lower take at the box office in its Thursday night previews compared to Brie Larson's The Marvel. Variety reports that Zegler's The Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes only grossed $5.75 million in previews on Thursday night. That's nearly $1 million less than when Brie Larson and The Marvels did. That film grossed $6.6 million at Thursday night previews just a week ago. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this is two very known IPs, right? Very, very well known. Obviously, the MCU, everybody knows the MCU and where it's at right now. And of course, you have The Hunger Games, which is a very big IP and a very big brand name. Now, I don't think it's as big as, say, Marvel is, right? Or Disney, but it's still pretty big. It's got books, it's got movies, it's got history, it's got lineage. I think it's still pretty big. So the fact that it grossed $1 million less, I don't know if that's bad on their part or if that's bad on the Marvel's part, considering that the MCU is so much bigger and so much more well-known cinematically that the fact that it only did $1 million more than a movie like this, that's pretty damn telling in my opinion. Now that I think about it, it's probably worse for the Marvels than it is for Rachel Zegler's Hunger Games, but still, good old Rachel Zegler is bombing pretty hard. Now, the only saving grace about Rachel Zegler's film is simply that the budget is much, much lower than the Marvels, which again, to me, this is more of a hit against the Marvels than it is to actual Hunger Games and Rachel Zegler. Because if her film has a $100 million budget and the Marvels has a $300 million budget and they're only about $1 million some odd dollars apart, I think the Hunger Games stands a much better chance at least making some money versus absolutely bombing and losing hundreds of millions of dollars like the Marvels is. But again, regardless, Rachel Zegler just can't seem to get into a film that is actually pretty successful, at least not from a box office standpoint. She'll get plenty of shills, right? She'll get absolutely plenty of shills online that will talk about how great she is and how stunning, diverse, and brave she is. She'll get that. But in terms of overall box office success, I don't know if she's gotten that yet. West Side Story, I don't believe, was a box office success, if I'm not mistaken. So it says, interestingly, The Hunger Games: A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was projected to have a better opening weekend than the Marvels. Box Office Pro adjusted their projection upwards this week, claiming that the film would gross between 42 and 55 million, and specifically predicting it would bring in 47.1 million at the domestic box office. In contrast, the outlet had adjusted their projections for the Marvels down to between 35 and 49 million right before the film arrived in theaters. The film would eventually bring in 46.1 million in its opening weekend, so it was about $3 million off from the projection. Given these Thursday night preview numbers, it's quite likely that the Marvels might actually outperform Zegler's The Hunger Games instead of the other way around. But here's the thing, I don't really think that the Marvels should not outperform Rachel Zegler's film. I feel like they should, you know what I mean? Like the MCU is much more prominent. Even in its current MCU version, when a lot of people are tapped out, they still have much more cinematic history than The Hunger Games does. And they have much more fans, in my opinion, than The Hunger Games does. So I don't think that people are going to want to necessarily see Hunger Games over the Marvels. I feel like the Marvels should be the movie that outperforms out of the two, right? I don't know if you guys agree. You can let me know in the comments down below, but I think out of the two, Marvel should definitely be on top. It says both films have identical tomato meter scores at 62%. They both have similar Metascore from critics. The Marvels had a 50, while The Hunger Games: Ballad of Songbirds has a 52. The one thing that The Hunger Games: Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes has going for it is its significantly lower production budget compared to the Marvels. That's what I was saying. That lower budget means its break-even point is a lot lower as well. The Hunger Games: Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes reportedly has only a $100 million budget, meaning it needs only $250 to break even in order to cover the split that theaters take from grosses as well as the marketing budget. Now, I had mentioned this earlier in the video, and it's true. This film has a much lower budget. So that is absolutely a win for them. I say it all the time, man. If you're going to make a movie like this, you need to make it low budgeted. It's not going to be very successful in the box office. Very few woke movies or very few movies that have identity politics taking prominence do very well in the box office. Is there some? Absolutely. But the majority of them will 100% bomb. And then you have Rachel Zegler, who is known to just completely tank people's perception of a movie before it even comes out. You're not going to want to take a major risk on someone like that. So you need to make this movie as cheap as possible. 100 million, in my opinion, is pretty spot on. I think that's the number that you have to be at in order to make a movie like this. It's going to probably gross worldwide, 300 to 400 million. I think that's going to be the number. And then you can have a profitable movie at that point and make as many woke nonsense movies as you want. But if you're doing this like the Marvels, where you have a $300 million budget, which means you need about 550 to 600 to break even, that's going to be rough. That's going to be extremely rough for you to catch up on that. It says the Marvels had a production budget upwards of $274 million. $274 million is the latest reported figure as of September of 2022. The film had reshoots after that, increasing that number. It also went through post-production, which also would have increased that figure. It's likely the film needs to make at least $800 million to break even. It will not do that. I don't think it's $800 million. I think $800 million is definitely wishing the worst against the Marvels, but I think $600 to $700 million is probably where it needs to be to break even. Box office analyst OMB Reviews discussed the Hunger Games box office, noting that he believes the production budget for the film is actually a lot higher. I would not be surprised if it actually costs a lot more than that, seeing that Hollywood is notorious for just lying about their budgets and overspending on everything. Nevertheless, he also stated the movie has a steep hill to climb, even if the $100 million price tag is accurate. He went on to predict that he believes the film will gross between 40 and 50 million domestically, with an overall international number probably between 85 to $100 million. Now, again, one thing that this movie has going for it, I don't know if it's going to carry through, but one thing it has going for it is that previous Hunger Games films were massive hits internationally. Massive, like huge. So if that carries over, then this film should be able to have a fairly strong international pull, but that's obviously remaining to be seen. We need a few more weeks in order to figure out whether that's actually going to be a thing. But still, if it is a thing, that's going to help it, because right now the Marvels does not have that. The Marvels is getting tanked everywhere. It is not looking good for them. And Rachel Zegler, good thing you have such a low budget. Otherwise, you would be in the same exact predicament. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.